every educator in our campus is requested to bring in a family picture and just put that family picture into the staff room. And even I do that. Just having that on my desk really allows me to take decisions very empathetically. The schools that I run, these are all Delhi public schools. Delhi public schools are synonymous to academic excellence.
Yeah.
I failed 7th grade. There are very different, subtle kind of bullying that happens in school. And I think that was something that did not really allow me to shine.
And do you feel like your experience makes you a more empathetic and sensitive head of school today?
Every time I meet a parent, I say that your child is our child.
What's the one value every child should learn early? Why? I'm very keen to know.
At the core of the administrative function, at the leadership of the administrative function is a teacher.
Today I have with us someone who I have had the privilege of knowing. His name is Siddharth Rajgarhia, the Chief Learner and Director of multiple Delhi public school campuses.
I'm excited for the conversation and I'm looking forward to this discussion.
Right. Siddharth, tell me a little bit about the growing up years. How did education happen? How did you have so many DPS schools under your umbrella? Just walk me through that journey of Siddharth as a child, a teen, and obviously now part of so many schools.
So I have grown up in Varanasi, and my early years up to I think grade 5 and 6 I've been there, and I'd gone to a Christian school, Christian missionary school, and I don't really recall the early days of my education. And I don't, like, if you ask me if I have any fond memories of my early days of school, probably not. It is just that one teacher that I recall in grade 3, that really even brings me joy today, remembering that one teacher in school. You know? And after that, I moved on and I went on to Delhi for a year. My family was there in Delhi. And I failed 7th grade, okay, and then I went on to school. I went on to boarding school after that. I think that was a very good learning experience for me because I was staying away from home.
Did you ever question why your parents sent you to boarding? मतलब fail हो गया इसलिए boarding school भेज दिया, or was that?
Yes, I think that was one of that could be one of the reasons, and also because at that point of time in smaller cities like Varanasi, that was trending to send your kids to boarding school. And later, both me and my parents, I think it was like a mixed kind of feeling. I did enjoy the boarding school because of the kind of school that was, but I also I felt a lot apart from my parents as well.
Did you blame them? Do you still blame them? Why did you send me to boarding school?
For a very long time in my life, that was a dialogue in my mind that I would say that why did you send me to boarding school, and that's why I'm not so connected to you guys. But I think that was me just growing up.
Is that the reason for your shy demeanor? Is that like because you internalized that going to boarding school?
No, I think for my shy demeanor, there was a whole lot of other things that happened back in school, in my boarding school.
Okay.
That I think never made me be the person who I was to be. And as I grew up, very recently, about 6-7 years back, I got into a beautiful practice of Vipassana. And that really allowed me to view myself internally. That really allowed me to understand why I was shy, why I was not so much outspoken, and just becoming okay with that made me more confident of the person who I am today.
I'm sorry, I'm going to make you uncomfortable, but what happened in boarding school, if you're okay
so
to share?
So I'm absolutely okay to share. So it's a very thin line, okay? And when I started actually pursuing, I never knew what actually happened to me, okay? But when I started pursuing my education, when I started doing my master's in education, and there was a particular module which was about barriers to learning. And when I actually did an in-depth study of that, in-depth research of what are those barriers to learning, I realized that there are very different subtle kind of bullying that happens in school, right? And because of those very subtle things that happen in school to a child, the child can really go into a shell. And everything else gets cut out, and the child is just in the internal world and just galloping inside the mind.
Right.
And I think that was something that happened back in school for me, and many incidences happened that did not really allow me to shine, did not really allow me to even put my point across, because the moment I would just try to say something, my peer pressure, the teachers around would remind you of a memory.
Yeah.
Right? And that really never allowed me to be the person who I wanted to be. And Vipassana was such a beautiful practice that it made me be like a scientist within my body, and it allowed me to see those past things and how they are affecting my day-to-day actions today. The moment I was able to see that, the practice is like if there's a thief inside your house and the owner of the house gets up, the thief automatically has to go.
Yeah.
So the moment I saw that, it just went out of my system.
Right. And do you feel like your experience, especially in the feeling in a grade, then moving away and not coming into your own, do you feel like that makes you a more empathetic and sensitive head of school today?
Absolutely. I think that is a very big lens with which I take my decisions today.
So was that like a natural extension that I want to be in school? I want to open schools because I want to impact so many other learners and not have them live that journey that I did?
So, well, to be honest, that was never that I thought of before. But yes, when I saw my father being a school leader, running a school, though that was the exact thing which I wanted to impact in every school that I was a part of. And even today, this is something that I truly believe in, and very small practices in our campuses that I emphasize is that every time I meet a parent, every time, I say that your child is our child, and that is how we try and, envision taking care of your child when the child walks into our doors. And a very small practice that we do really allows us to do this. Every educator in our campus is, requested, asked to bring in a family picture. And just put that family picture into the staff room, into your place of work.
Yeah.
And even I do that. And I've noticed that just putting that family picture where both my kids are there, my wife is there, just having that on my desk really allows me to take decisions very empathetically, because I'm, as a leader, you're faced with so many decisions, whether you want to increase an extra bus, whether you want to have 2 more teachers or have 2 lesser teachers in the school, because these are things that are invisible to the outside world. It is just the leadership that really knows this, right? These are very subtle decisions which are invisible to the outside world, but it might deeply impact a child, or it might deeply impact the finances of the school.
Right. So I have a next question. How do you straddle between the two? Because I think that's where most business owners are torn apart, especially because you're in a very impactful space. You're impacting learning.
Yeah.
How do you straddle the business and the learning side of it?
So I view the world as infinite possibilities. And for me, it is not just finance that will allow me to run schools, but it's also about my relationships with the outside world. And I think today, in the world today, it's not just finance, it's about a lot of other things. You can pull a lot of strings as a school leader to, you have such a vast resource in your parent body, and you can actually exploit that as a school leader. So I don't see finance is very important, because without that, a sustainable school cannot run. Without that, you cannot always look to do the best for your children. So I think that's a very important aspect. Somehow people view it negatively, right? But I think it's a really positive and an important aspect. And for a good school to run, it's really, really important. But I think for me, at the core of everything is learning. All of everything else.
You were mentioning about straddling between the learning and growth part of running a school, and then of course
Yes.
the finance part of it. So how do you straddle between
So
the two?
a very conscious decision that we've taken up at our campuses, that every vertical of the school will be run by an educator. That's a very conscious decision. So even all our administrative functions, at the core of the administrative function, at the leadership of the administrative function, is a teacher.
Lovely.
So just because of that shift that we were able to make, we realized that everything else is secondary for us in the execution. The primary part of the school is the learning. So when an administrator also is an educator, the administrator knows that how that small little thing on stage, if a mic is not working, how is that going to impact the morale of the student?
Yeah.
Right? So there's so much more investment from everybody in the school just because of that decision. And I think that has been a very big game changer for us.
I'm sure. I can only imagine the empathy levels.
Yes.
Must be so much higher when
Yes.
you have an educator
Yeah.
right there. Tell me, do you think parents today are overthinking education? Do you think we've made it like our top priority?
They're not thinking. I would say parents today are not thinking, and it's just the parents today are thinking about their social circle when they choose a school. They're not thinking, why am I sending the child to school?
Or they're not even thinking, is this school right for my child?
Like I said, I meet so many parents, and somehow the only way of deciding a school is, where is my friend sending his or her child to the school, where if I want to get into this friend group, and where are they sending their children to the school, because if my child goes to the same school, then I become a part of that group.
Would
as
it
well.
be wrong to say we are thinking of schools as networking playgrounds?
Absolutely, because as adults today, you see, apart from a few organizations like an EO or a you don't have places to really network, right? So schools actually become those networking playgrounds. Rather, I would like parents to think that when they're choosing a school, I would like them to think, what's the purpose of education? Why am I actually sending my child to school? Am I sending my child to school to, get a job? Am I sending my child to school to get into a good college? Am I sending my child to school so that the child becomes confident of himself, herself? Am I sending my child to school so that they learn the rules and the tricks and trade of society? What is it that and it could be a mixture of a few of them, right? Am I sending my child to school because I want him or her to make friends? Or am I sending my child to school because I cannot take responsibility because I have a job, 7-hour job, both of us are going.
But Siddharth, this could be every parent's reality where it is a mixture of all of these things.
Absolutely. But it's really important.
Add to this location, fees, opportunities, and how long are the hours of school. Like I know it was a very important factor when parents write to us that we're both working and we want school which has extended hours of play or curriculum, so that are we looking, is it wrong to look at all of these as parameters?
Absolutely not wrong. When I ask that question, it's absolutely not wrong, right? But what I'm actually trying to say is, have it penned down. You should know what you're looking for, right? Like, a lot of us plan our life vision or a vision board, Why do we do that? Because we want to actually pen down, we want to be crystal clear, okay, this is what I want to be. This is where I want to be headed to. Because 2 years down the line, you don't want to, just get up one day and realize, okay, you're headed in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
So similarly, I would like parents to really think of these questions and pen that down, because the moment you pen it down, that is when you're able to, look at a school and then ask the right questions.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Tell me, what are the wrong questions that we're asking? Are we asking the wrong questions on
which is the board?
Yeah.
That's the wrong. That's the
Why?
worst
Why?
question.
I'm very keen to know. Why is asking which board is the school the wrong question?
So for me, like, I'm an educator by heart, soul, spirit, everything, right? So you cannot really categorize schools by board, okay? Because you can't really say like a blanket statement. Today I agree that 90% schools can be categorized by boards, but you can't have a blanket statement, because what do the boards really define? The boards define the assessment of grade 10th.
Right.
And grade 12th, right? They don't define anything else. They define ki bhai, what is it that the child is going to be asked in the 10th grade paper.
Yeah.
Everything else, what is the child going to learn in grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, grade 4, all of those things are recommendations that every board gives, right? They don't say that, okay, this is the book that you've got to follow.
Yeah.
No board says that.
Right.
All are recommendations.
Right.
And if you look at multiple boards, they all talk in terms of learning outcomes.
Got it.
Okay, so every board says, okay, this is a list of outcomes that you've got to have by the end of grade 1 in a CBSE school, in an IGCSE school, in an IB school. IB schools would have a lot of some themes as well, the transdisciplinary themes. But that's exactly what every board says.
Right.
What is more important is what's the vision of the organization? Who is the leader running that organization at the top? What's the vision of that person? Is that person being a role model to all the students in the organization, or is that person just there, being on the seat? I think all of those questions are very, very important. Is that so? In the older days, and a leader of an educational institute was a leader of society. People in society were looking up to that person as a role model.
Yeah.
That's exactly how a school should be chosen, right?
Yeah.
Because the school leader is not just leading the students, but is also leading the parent body, is also leading society at large. Because if I'm a parent, okay, and you are a school leader and I don't look up to you, I'm going to crib about you at home.
Yeah.
And my child is going to understand the same narrative.
Yeah.
And then, do you really think the child is going to learn from you?
But Siddharth, you may be the leadership and governing body, but you may not be the teacher. So, at the end of the day, my child is still learning from someone else. And it then depends on whether your vision and mission is translated to the lowest common denominator.
So, Mansi, with so much work that I've been able to put in my schools, I realized that it is upon that one or a couple of leaders at the top that defines how the teaching body thinks.
Yeah.
Every
and we've spoken about this.
Yeah, every thought. You can actually view the teacher as somebody, like in India today, it's a problem, right? People like yesterday, day before, we had a we started our interviews at 8 a.m. in the morning, we ended at 7 p.m. Okay, and I see that there are a lot of people who just come into teaching because they did not get accepted anywhere else, right? And there are a lot of people who get into teaching with a lot of passion as well. But I think it's upon a leader, because whenever somebody gets into a new job, just think of it. You're getting into a new job because you want to be the best at that job on that first day.
Yeah.
And that's when it really makes a difference who the leader of that organization is. Whether it is a company, whether it's a school, doesn't really matter. But how the leader thinks, how the leader behaves, how what is it that you're constantly talking about, it will go down to every person in the organization.
Right. So tell me, you were saying that a board that your child goes to, whether it's CBSE, ICSE, IGCSE, IB, does not matter.
Absolutely.
These are just mechanics and metrics of assessment. The core things or the outcome goals that a child is typically supposed to learn at that age is what each of these have defined. The assessment methods may vary, right? That's what we are saying.
So the assessment methods will vary. I wouldn't say completely it does not matter, but in the grade 10th level, since the assessment is a little different for IB and a little different for IGCSE and a little different for CBSE and ICSE and so on, assessment defines what we are learning.
Yeah.
So at the grade 10th level, it will matter.
Right.
But in the lower classes, it really does
matter.
not matter. That is what I'm really saying.
Right.
And it is more of the culture of the school, the environment of the school, because the environment of the school is what really defines learning. You can have a brilliant SSC school and there can be amazing learning happening, and you can have the worst of the worst IB schools, and I've seen both.
Yeah.
And many of us have seen both.
Right. No, absolutely. So tell me, when you are thinking of 21st century learning, what would be the 4 or 5 buckets that you would say must be core of any school, irrespective of the board?
So I would say that the culture of the school is paramount for me.
Yeah.
Is the school promoting that independence? Is the school promoting decision making? Is the school allowing the child to take initiative? Is the school encouraging, passion projects? Is the school encouraging, does the school has a culture of reading in the school? These are all things. Are there enough spaces for child to showcase their talent? Are there enough programs, structures in place where there are hackathons happening? There are opportunities to learn from amazing people coming into the school. Like just the other day in one of our campuses, we had 2 young CEOs coming in. Ayush and Shubham, they run a Second Brain Labs. It's a AI startup based out of Bangalore, and we had a masterclass on AI with these. So all of these, all of these things leave a big impact on the students. And what's really important is the school really thinking of what is their vision and their mission, right? And so if I have, like in my vision and in our school's vision and mission, we have something called as the success mindset. Okay, and it's core to something that we do. Okay, so it cannot just be on a piece of paper on a wall. It has to be visible in my classroom every 45 minutes, every 50 minutes. The teaching slot that we have, it has to be visible in every 50 minutes. Right? Is that visible? I think all of those things. Unfortunately, what has happened in education, we have coined new terminologies because of the West. We've just copied what the US is saying in terms of 21st century skills and this and that. I think education at the core is very basic and common sense.
Break it down for me. What do you mean by that?
It's absolute common sense. What happens is when we bring in new terminology, when we bring in new words, what it does, it confuses people. Especially in the teaching fraternity, it really confuses the educators, and they start thinking, okay, we've got to do something new, something different, right? But education is common sense. Education is about hearing the student, giving them a voice, it is about, like, the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Similarly, if you break that down into the child has basically 3 needs. The child wants to feel that I belong to this environment, right? The child wants to feel that, okay, in this classroom, I have a say. I am a somebody and I am not a nobody.
Yeah.
That's very basic that a child wants to know. The child wants to know that, okay, I am empowered. I can take a decision and I can execute that decision. And if I fail, but my teacher is there with me.
Yeah.
You know, the child wants to feel empowered, right? They want to be appreciated when they do something right. You want appreciation, right? That will give them that motivation. And the third, the child is looking for some fun in the classroom.
Right.
If these three needs are met, right, I think learning is going to happen.
Right.
Our intrinsic nature is learning.
Right.
That's the nature of human beings. You know, if you see a really small child, a newborn child, right? Is the child going to school? No. But the child is learning from age 0 to 3 years old. The child is automatically learning, and the child is learning from the environment. You know, if you would see two newborn kids, maybe 6 months, 1 year down the line, they start eating. Okay. In this household, this child starts eating and wouldn't eat spicy food. But this child starts eating and would eat spicy food because of the household.
Yeah.
So it is the environment that defines who we are.
Right.
And the most important thing in any school to me is the environment, the culture. How are people thinking? What is that? What are those unsaid rules in that school, that organization? I think that really defines.
So tell me, what is the culture that you want to work with in the schools that you run and manage, which is whether it's DPS, Nasik, Varanasi, Hinjewadi?
So, you know, that's exactly what we are doing in our schools, in equanimity learning as well. And the culture is that there's no leadership. The leadership is not there to stop things to happen. But the leadership is there for making everybody a leader in the school, right?
Amazing.
Everybody in the school should be thinking child first.
Yeah.
I think that's the first thing. It has to be a very open, transparent culture. Like I've always encouraged that, and if you see that whenever I go into my campuses also, I sit in the center of the campus and there's no room. It's like a table in the center of the campus. The kids come and talk to me. They share amazing ideas. You know, like I remember very recently a child came and told me that, you know, sir, I have a lot of these small fishes. They are called guppy fishes. I have a lot of them at my house because my father is into, you know, something like, there's a big pond and I have a lot of them. Can I do a business of that? Can I sell them? You know, these are some amazing ideas. I remember the other day a child came up to me and asked, sir, why do hair grow? Why do we have hair? And how does the hair grow?
Yeah.
You know, and I realized I didn't know the answer to that question. So it's just that environment that you are getting.
No, absolutely. I remember when my daughter, when I was dropping her to the school bus stop, and she asked me, why are all school buses yellow?
Yeah.
And I didn't know the answer.
Correct.
And the curiosity continues, and she asked me so many questions after that. I launched a podcast after it, which we call I'm Not Bored, which is like bite-sized news for little minds. Like they want to know, like every question that you as a parent need to go back to Google to is answered in the right sort of, in the right sort of language. Age appropriateness is considered without making it too gory, because sometimes it could be even about war, like why do people fight, right?
Correct.
I mean, that's a question they've been thinking over the last almost 17 months, and and that's the question we want to answer. But we don't know the answers to war. When Russia and Ukraine went to war, and my daughter asked me, and honestly, I had to go back to history, that really what was the history of those two nations and why, right? Which is exactly, and I'm so glad you say that. And the reason I mentioned is because as I realize that as adults, the minute we are not vulnerable or we're not open to saying, oh, even I don't know, let's learn together.
Absolutely.
If that's never your approach, then you are going to stagnate yourself as well as a leader or a person with slightly more experience, as I would call it.
And you pass on your baggages to your children, to the people you work with, you know.
Yeah.
And it's So like I remember doing so we run a YouTube channel as well, and I remember doing a full series on how to build your team. Okay,
Yeah.
how to build a really solid team and how to build a culture in the school. And I think it's on the decision making. A lot of times as leaders, we feel that all decisions are to be taken by us.
Yes.
I think that's something that I've been able to do in recent times, that most of the decisions, right, I let the team take it.
Yeah.
Right. And I think with that, what happens is there's so much more ownership from the team into what they're executing.
Yeah.
And they feel that, if I am taking this decision, then it actually becomes my responsibility to execute.
Right.
And it is so much more calmer at your end as well.
Oh, 100%.
I
That we also met, when we were chatting, there was a question that, and maybe some of it ties in now, which is, you had sessions which I hosted in the school, which were on empowering parents and on conscious parenting. What was the thought process behind inviting me to host those sessions?
Largely, what we wanted is that just I love the work that you've been doing, and just creating awareness about how should a parent be thinking, and everything around that. So largely in schools, a very big aspect of running a school is to bringing in role models in the school. And that was our effort, to bring in a parent role model for the parent body, that here is somebody whom you can ask your questions to, and you might not feel that, because they ask us all the time, and sometimes the parent body might feel that what we might answer is for the best benefit of the school and not for their child, right? So I think that was just to bring in a role model so that they can look up to somebody, they can be aware of what is it that's going around, and how they should really, because parenting is something that does not come with a manual.
Yeah.
And I think that's a lot of parents also get into it without knowing what they're really buying into.
Absolutely. And I think it matches so beautifully when you were sharing about the work that I do, which is on conscious parenting, and what you're trying to teach at school, which is everybody is equal, and everybody is equal when they're empowered.
Yes.
And just because you come with 30 plus more year experience of staying on this planet does not make you entitled to not answer or address the curiosity of the little one, right? Because they are asking questions to learn and to grow. And if you're not going to make time for it, then you're stagnating your growth. They will still find newer resources to learn.
Absolutely.
And like you said, we carry on, if we don't empower them, we carry on that baggage for so long, and then we pass it on to our children, which becomes then their problem to solve, and then the next generation carries it forward as well. Tell me, you talk about this philosophy of 1% better every day that you want to bring to equanimity learning. Tell me, explain this 1% philosophy to me.
So this actually comes from amazing work of James Clear. There's this beautiful book called Atomic Habits. And I actually bring that to education. And it is so powerful that the children get hooked onto it immediately. And it is just that one question that I ask them, that what is 1.01 to the power of 365, and the children they realize that this is common sense. A lot of adults feel that okay, this is just in theory, but kids really realize that it's common sense. And what we really get them to do is make sure that you've learned one thing new today.
Got it.
Right? So in our school diaries also, when they go back, every day we have like a 25-minute time at the end of the day, before they board their buses, before they go back, right? And in those 25 minutes, they've got to document
Right.
what they've learned. In like a large paragraph, they could draw.
So sum it up with its reflection.
Make your thinking visible.
Got it.
Right? So they make their thinking visible by just documenting what they've learned today, right? Because with that, there are multiple things that happen. Many parents have told me over so many years that my child never tells me
Yeah.
what.
That's the story of every parent. My child does not tell me what they did in school.
Correct. So this solves that.
Yeah.
Because the child has either drawn or written down.
Amazing.
Right? It gives them a habit of journaling.
Yeah.
And I think for me, what has been
very,
the
very
most
powerful
transformational is my habit of journaling.
Yeah.
So that is something that I wanted every child to learn who came across the campuses that I lead. Another thing that it does is, because of that documentation, the parent, as a parent, you can ask so many more questions based on what the child has written.
Yeah.
Because if you don't get that, the only question that you ask, how was school?
Yeah.
What happened today?
Yeah.
Right? And it's so much boring. It's so boring for the child to answer that question every day.
100%.
Right? So I think it has been a big game changer, and it also has been what we actually explain to children is, when you document, what happens is you actually revise, you actually reflect through your entire day.
Yeah.
When you reflect through your entire day, whatever is in your short-term memory gets transferred into your long-term memory. So even kids as young as 6 years old, 5 years old, they're able to understand.
Right. Tell me, you also talk about cultivating competence in character. How do you make sure that you're teaching that in school beyond textbooks?
Beautiful. So we've learned this. We've learned this over multiple years. We've been able to visit some amazing institutes in India, across India. I've been able to visit some institutes in Australia, in Singapore. In India, we've visited Riverside School. We've learned from there. We've visited, a lot of schools in Mumbai as well, a lot of schools in Delhi, and learned from a lot of my association with Leena. I've learned a lot of it from there as well, and the amazing work that she does. So what we try and do here is, by design, we try and bring that the child is not just learning mathematics, English, Hindi, but is also learning a lot of character traits. What is a good way of living? What are those life skills that are important? And how do we really do that is, every morning when children come to school, they have a 30-minute time which is called Samurja, okay, which is just coming together as a class. And the first 30 minutes, what they do is, they would sometimes play a game, or they would read a story about an inspirational person. Sometimes in the senior class they would watch a TED talk. And as a class, then they reflect on that experience. Based on that, what they do is they write a tone of the day. Okay, so they write how is it that they would like to live their day today. It's like a opening of a new book, right? This is the theme of the book. Like, so that day opens up with that tone of the day. Okay, so now if the tone of the day was, today we are going to help each other, or the tone of the day was, today we are going to learn from our mistakes, or the tone of the day was, today we are going to appreciate people, right? Now, if that's the tone of the day, then in the English class, while you're learning English, did you appreciate your friends? Did you appreciate your teachers? In the math class, did you help your friends? Did you help a benchmate to solve a problem better? Right? In the sports class, were you able to push yourself 1% more? Right? So the tone allows the child to keep that in mind throughout the day and work in the math class, in the English class, in the Hindi class with that in mind. And then in the end of the day, when they are reflecting on their day, they answer this question as well, that were they able to live up to the tone? If yes, what all did they do? If not, how would they want to change the day for
Right.
themselves?
Right.
So what it does, it allows for the content to become a vehicle
Yeah, to
for the
drive
character
through. Yeah, absolutely. So brilliantly
to
said.
be learnt.
Tell me, Siddharth, we're speaking of competence character, but end में, the Indian parent is only looking at results. And we are a very result-oriented society.
Absolutely.
अरे तुमने इतना, you did XYZ classes for 3 years, you're not playing competitive tennis. Or you did this so much for so much time, you're not being able to win one game. We are very, very result-oriented. How do you ensure that you are still preparing your learners for a competitive landscape?
No, I think it's not, for me, it's not an either or world,
Yeah.
right? When I say all of this, I also mean results.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? And with the schools that I run, these are all Delhi public schools. Delhi public schools are synonymous to academic excellence.
Yeah.
Right? So I think it's a, but to me, what's more important is what is it that the child wants more?
Yeah.
If the child wants results, brilliant. But is the parent actually pushing what they could not achieve
Yeah.
and wanting to achieve the same thing through their child?
Yeah.
I think that's a way which should not be walked on to.
And I must say, when I conduct so many of these conscious parenting sessions, especially in schools, and I've done that in many different cities, especially when I was in UP in Kanpur, and the kids said to me that, my father thinks that if I'm not good in math, I won't make it to the UPSC exam, and I'm good for nothing because math nahi aata hai. Math mein, he calls me dabba gul all the time, which is so much of conditioning and conditioning and conditioning.
Yeah.
And it makes me wonder, one, you said about are we living our dreams and aspirations through our children? That is one. Second is math a key determinant of a child's IQ? And the third part is a very important aspect, which is as a parent, and this is how we've been trained as Indians, that good education is your ladder to success. ये ही वो चीज़ है जो आपकी लाइफ को इम्प्रूव कर सकता है, because everything else is not in my control. What is in my control is I give you good education and therefore you will be able to make a good living for yourself. So answer these three pieces.
I think all of these are very complicated philosophical questions. Being a young person, I might not be able to choose the right words to be able to answer it, but I'll try my best. I think for me, what is important is, firstly, we figure out what is the right education. I think in a lot of math classes, okay, why children hate maths.
Yeah.
Is in a lot of math classes, I think this was, a lot of children in my school hated maths for a very long time. And I realized that there's something wrong happening. And about 6 years back, that made me get into a lot of research. And I researched a lot of Stanford professors and a lot of these really high math professors and researchers. And I realized that the way we do math, there's something wrong.
Yeah.
Because in a class of say 30 or 40, if we feel that these 4 kids regularly answer quickly, then they are good in mathematics. Everybody feels they become good in mathematics, everybody else is not so good in mathematics, and the teacher constantly reconfirms that narrative in the class. So everybody else starts believing that I'm not good in mathematics. But what's actually happening is these 4-5 kids are good in computation, in calculation, right? They're good in that calculative ability. They're not, you can't really say that they're good in mathematics, because maths is a way of thinking and not just calculation. So maybe there's some kid in the class who is not so fast in calculation, but is still thinking in that manner, right? So I think it's really important that we first get to that what's the right education. That is very, very important. And one of our biggest challenges, and you were talking about the different boards. Why is IB board so preferred today? I think it's just because the class sizes are small. Because the fees is higher, they can afford to have small class sizes. Whereas on the other side of the spectrum, if you look at a SSC board, a CBSE board, I say the class sizes are bigger because the fees is that way, right? So I think it's more of the class size that is so much more important, because just common sense that because of the class size, the teacher is able to put in more attention, more individual feedback. The biggest leverage in any child's learning is timely feedback.
Right.
And this research tells us, there's a lot of research by John Hattie. He measured multiple areas which can cause the biggest growth in a child's learning. And what he realized is timely feedback is the biggest benefit in any child's learning, and that can only happen with smaller class sizes.
Got it.
Because of the mechanism of scale.
Right. Also tell me, where every educator today I know is talking about the national education policy, while the parent seems to be very, very confused. कि मतलब अब क्या होने वाला है? We are still grappling with different boards. Now I have to also understand this national education policy and what it does to my child, and therefore the future of my children. So if you had to sum up the NEP and make it literally very simple for parents to understand and key highlights, what would that be?
So I feel that many schools in India were already walking that path. And
what is that path?
So that path is about making education relevant. Whatever the child is studying is, so in our school we talk about 4 R's, okay? Making education relevant. Whatever the child is studying, it's got to be relevant to them. If the child is studying linear equations in grade 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, linear equations, 1 variable, 2 variable, the child needs to know how is that going to change my life to make it a better life.
Right.
If we are telling the child that you are studying this because this is going to come in the exam, it's not relevant. If I know that, okay, tomorrow if I have to make some decisions for a factory, if I'm running a factory, and if I have to take decisions, okay, if my shoe, the size of my shoe is X, and if the size of the lace is Y, and can I make a equation, can I decide the length of my shoelace based on if I study linear equations, then yes, it becomes relevant for me. Right. So the education in school, that I'll try and sum it up in very brief, it has to be relevant for students. It has to be hands-on, it has to be relevant, right? Education is all about moving from concrete to abstract. In many schools in India, just because there is less finances available, you're not able to make a lot of teaching aids available, right? Math, why do many kids struggle? It's an abstract subject. You can't touch and feel fractions. The moment there's a teaching aid in the class where you can touch and feel fractions, or there's a chapati that you can touch and feel it, right? The child can develop those thinking abilities because the child can visualize it, touch it, feel it, right? So moving from construct to abstract, right? Concrete to abstract. The second very big part in the NEP also is about the culture of the school, right? When I talk about the culture of the school, the second R would come in, which is about relationships. It's a really important factor. Nothing is possible without relationships. Relationships between various stakeholders in a school, right? Relationships between the school management and the parent body of the school. Today, these two in most of the schools are head-on, right? Both of them. Learning cannot happen in those schools.
Right.
If if there's no relationship, learning cannot happen. Relationship between a teacher and the parent, relationship between the teacher and the student, relationship between student and students, all of these positive relationships contribute to a lot of learning and the culture of the school. And that's what the NEP talks about when they talk about the culture of the school. The next R would be rigor, right? So everything that we do in school, our aim is to push the child 1% ahead, right? Because as an educator, I know this, that I can never be a good educator. You know, teaching is one job where you can never be good at. Because if the child is here, you can take the child here. If the child is here, you can take the child here. If the child is here, you can still take the child here. So there's no limit, right? And I think that is something that every school must strive for, that how can we be 1% better? How can we still, the moment schools start feeling that okay, we have arrived, I think that's when schools or school leaders start feeling that we have arrived. I think that's when it all starts going down, right? And the last thing I would like to summarize is reflection, getting children to continuously reflect on various learning experiences, right? So I think that's very, very important, like the diary writing at the end of the day. So I was talking about reflection. Reflection is really important in education, and you know, you actually throughout the day, if in a school you're giving a lot of experiences to children, but if you don't get them to reflect on them, learning is not really happening. Because those are just experiences and the child will forget about it. But the moment you get them to reflect, the moment you get them to think, what did you learn from this experience? There are multiple schools that take children to field visits to different various experiences. But are we able to really derive learning from those visits? Are we getting the child to reflect that what did you really learn from this, or those are just fun recreational things that we do when we come back? I think that's very, very important. And throughout the day in the school, there are so many moments through which reflection can happen, so many moments through which learning can happen. And even the NEP talks about really bringing together and blurring a lot of boundaries for subject boundaries, like the mathematics, English, science, can they really come together? It talks about a project-based approach towards learning as well. And I think all of those are very, very interesting narratives. But more than anything, I think it's about the teaching capacity. It's about those discussions that are really, really important to happen. And a lot schools need to really invest into a lot of professional development.
Absolutely.
And really build capacity in the teaching body. And they need to start really thinking about those things.
Right.
That's very important.
Also tell me, this is a topic that I think educators and parents are fearing at the same time, which is the excessive use of AI and how is AI impacting education. Would love to know what you think about it.
So I'm a very enthusiastic AI user, and we've been using it for multiple things in school. So what it actually does is it saves a lot of time for the educator, right? A lot of lesson plan making, a lot of personalization. You know, if you put into
the right prompts.
Yeah, if you put in the right prompts, and like if I am able to put all the marks of Mansi into the system, okay, and I say that this is what I feel about the child, the AI would give me a perfectly crafted out personalized plan that I can do for Mansi in the classroom. Right? Otherwise, it would be very difficult. It would probably take me so much time to come out with that. And because it would take so much time, as an educator, I wouldn't execute it.
Would you think it'll kill the creativity of the teacher in doing this?
So there are multiple ways to look at it. I am somebody who looks at harnessing uncertainty
Oh,
always.
100%. I'll tell you. So when I was, my daughter found one problem in math hard, and I thought she needed more practice on this concept. So I actually put the problem as is, and I said, sixth grader finds this problem hard.
Yeah.
How share more problems to master this concept. And oh my God, gone are the days when we used to search for math worksheets, grade 6 math worksheet on simple equations. It was absolutely what you said.
Correct.
And I think as parents, educators, if we are not harnessing the power and putting in the right prompts, like if I have to today go back and teach a concept which I have forgotten, it takes me like literally 40 seconds to refresh, put in the right prompt, refresh that concept and say, okay, how could I forget this, because also to go back to teaching, and it's not like we haven't learned the concept, it's just we've forgotten, or we've forgotten to teach it the way they are learning it right now, which I think is a struggle for a lot of parents.
Let me give you an example, a very beautiful way of, there's a lot of talk around AI agents, okay? So in our campus, we made a discipline agent.
Okay.
In every big school, there's a problem. There are 200 educators, and every educator thinks differently, right? So a child misbehaves, and this educator would deal with this child in a certain way, and this one would deal in a slightly different way, and this one would deal in a slightly different way. Now, in the mind of the children in the classroom, for them, they don't understand there are three different people. They see कि okay, Arav के साथ तो ये किया था, and Shamli के साथ ये किया. Why are they doing this with me? So for them, it's such a big thing, and they feel that they are targeting me. That's the narrative in the mind of the child, right? What we did is every school has a discipline policy. Okay, we put that discipline policy into a GPT. Okay, and we made a customized GPT. Right now, and we've requested every educator that whenever something happens, you might want to do what you want to do, but just put in a small prompt that this happened. What should I be doing? Or this is what I do. Is it okay? Does it align with the discipline policy of the school?
Interesting.
It might take time for it to really get implemented, but what it does is the GPT gets 250 educators to start thinking in one direction.
No, I think
it's just so powerful.
It is,
right?
Absolutely. Moving to a very fun part of the segment, and I'm sure all the kids at all the DPS schools that you man would be very keen on knowing this fun side of Siddharth. So let's see, how does that go? If you weren't an educator, what would you have done differently?
Probably a sportsman.
Okay. Your favorite subject in school growing up?
Maths.
One big lesson you have learned from your students?
I think everything is an opportunity, and you can learn from everybody. That is something that I've learned from them.
Your proudest moment as a teacher in your career?
So I remember sometime back, I started out this practice when 1 month prior to the grade 10th exam, I went and met the entire class, and I would, mutually get 6-7 kids who are really struggling to submit their phones with me for 1 month. Okay, and I remember that the first time I did that, 1 or 2 children after their exams, they came back to me and they said that Siddharth, this was the best thing that you could have ever done for me. So I think that was one of my proudest moments.
What's the one value every child should learn early?
That you can do what you can vision. Have a vision for yourself.
Okay. What's the biggest myth about parenting today?
If that person is doing this, I should do this with my child.
Okay. What's the future of exams?
The child is going to be assessed every second, and it's going to be like a continuous assessment. So like today, society assesses adults every second. I think there's going to be mechanisms when every second of what happens in the child growing up, that's going to be recorded, and all of that would really help understand how the child is growing up.
Interesting. One thing schools today need to stop doing.
Targeting, labeling.
Okay. One thing you want to change about the Indian education system.
I think there are a lot of things that I would like to change, but more passionate people, good people getting into education is what.
One mistake parents do when it comes to their child's education.
They think that my child will learn the way I also learned.
Right. Who's more strict, Siddharth the father or Siddharth the educator?
The father.
Okay. Okay, so that sums it up. Thank you for being with us today. It was an incredible chat. Thank you. Thank you so much, Siddharth.
For parenting tips, celebrity interviews, recipes, conversations with experts, DIYs, and lots more. Subscribe to Kidsstoppress now.